The lawyer slid the envelope across the diner table like it was a knife. Outside, Rainford's main street shone with thin, oily rain. Neon from the pharmacy sign trembled on the wet asphalt. A truck idled at the curb, engine coughing. Inside, the air smelled of burnt coffee and fryer grease. A spoon rang against a mug, sharp as a warning. "Don't open it here," Mr. Klein said. Mara opened it anyway. Her fingers were stiff from the cold. Or from something else. She tore the flap with her thumbnail and pulled out a single page, creased twice, the paper too thick to be ordinary mail. At the top was a title in heavy, formal type. Last Will and Testament of Henry A. Vale. Mara's throat tightened at the name. She hadn't said it out loud in years. She felt it in her molars, like pressure. She skimmed. Words jumped and swam. "To my daughter, Mara Elise Vale." Her hand trembled and she pinned the paper down with her palm. The diner's vinyl seat squeaked when she shifted her weight. Her heartbeat was loud enough that the room seemed to go quiet around it. Klein watched her the way people watch storms on weather radar. Like it wasn't personal, but it was. Then Mara hit the paragraph with the condition. She read it once. Then again slower. And her mouth went dry. Klein spoke softly. "It's not negotiable." Mara stared at the page as if it might change if she hated it hard enough. The condition was one sentence, clean and polite. And impossible. "To inherit the property, savings, and business interests, my daughter must reside in Rainford for 90 consecutive days and restore the family home on Alder Street to livable condition. She must do so together with her half-brother, Jonah Reed, and share occupancy with him for the duration of that period." Half-brother. Together. Share occupancy. Mara felt her stomach drop, like the floor of the booth had disappeared. "I don't have a half-brother," she said. Her voice sounded calm. Almost bored. Her hands, under the table, were clenched so tight her nails bit into skin. Klein didn't blink. "You do." Outside, a siren wailed once and faded. In the diner, someone laughed too loud, too long, as if trying to drown out their own thoughts. Mara folded the paper with careful, tidy movements. "You're wrong," she said. Klein leaned forward. He smelled faintly of peppermint and old paper. "Miss Vale, your father anticipated that reaction." "My father," Mara said, and the word came out flat, "anticipated a lot." She stood up. The booth squealed again. Her chair legs scraped tile. Klein didn't stop her. He only slid a second envelope toward the edge of the table. "Read this when you're alone," he said. "Anne." "I'm sorry." Mara didn't ask what was in it. She knew what an apology meant in a town like Rainford. It meant someone had already decided what you were going to lose. She grabbed her coat, left a crumpled bill on the table without looking, and pushed through the diner door. Cold air hit her face, metallic and wet. Rainford smelled like damp leaves and distant smoke. And somewhere under all of it, like a note she couldn't unhear, it smelled like Alder Street. Like her childhood. Like the night she never spoke about. She drove straight to the motel because she couldn't go anywhere else. The Rainford Motor Lodge sat behind a row of bare maples. Its sign buzzed and flickered, spelling Moar when the E dropped out. The office smelled like bleach and cheap air freshener. A bowl of peppermints sat on the counter, glossy and untouched. The woman at the desk recognized Mara immediately, which made Mara's skin prickle. "You're Henry's girl," the woman said. She didn't phrase it like a question. Mara forced her lips into something that might pass as a smile. Just passing through. The woman's eyes moved over Mara's face like she was searching for the child she remembered. She slid a key across. "Room 6. Ice machine's broken." "Sorry." Mara took the key. It was heavy, old-fashioned, with a plastic tag that had been handled by too many hands. When she got to her room, she locked the door twice, then leaned her back against it. The silence pressed in, full of tiny noises, water running in pipes, the hum of the heater, a distant thump of a door closing somewhere. She took out Klein's second envelope and held it for a long moment. Her thumb traced the seal. Then she ripped it open. Inside was a cassette tape. Not a letter. Not another legal document. A tape, clear plastic with a paper label in her father's sharp handwriting. Mara, if you're reading this, it means I'm dead. Mara stared at it until her eyes stung. She hadn't seen a cassette since she was a kid. Rainford hadn't changed, but time had. Her phone didn't have any way to play it. Of course it didn't. Her breath came shallow. She sat on the edge of the bed. The blanket smelled like detergent and something older underneath. She thought about leaving. Driving back to her apartment, back to her job, back to the life she'd built out of distance and careful routines. But the will had pulled a wire inside her, one she'd spent years pretending wasn't there. Alder Street. 90 days. And Jonah Reed. She said the name in her head and felt nothing. That scared her more than anger would have. On the motel nightstand sat a printed card. For assistance, please dial 0. Mara picked up the phone and dialed the front desk instead. When the woman answered, Mara kept her voice steady. Do you have a tape player? A pause. A soft breath through the receiver. Honey, the woman said, I think the last one we had is in the storage closet behind the office. Another pause, then, you want me to bring it? Mara swallowed. Yes. When she hung up, her hands were shaking so hard she sat on them. She stared at the wall. The wallpaper was patterned with faded boats, little sailboats going nowhere. A memory surfaced, her father's hand on her shoulder, too firm, guiding her toward a door she didn't want to open. The smell of his cologne. The sound of a television downstairs. Someone laughing like it meant nothing. Mara forced the memory back down. She stood up and walked to the bathroom sink. Turned on the water. Cold. Then warm. She watched her own face in the mirror. Fine, she whispered to herself, and it sounded like a lie she'd practiced. A knock came at the door, light and cautious. Mara opened it a crack. The woman from the office stood there with a small gray tape recorder in her hands, dust on the handle. Got it working, the woman said. Had to smack it a little. Mara took it, her fingers brushing the woman's. The woman's gaze held Mara's for a second too long. There was pity there. And something else. Like fear. Welcome back, the woman said softly. Mara shut the door and locked it again. Then she set the recorder on the bed, slid the tape in and pressed play. The motor whirred. A faint hiss. Her father's voice filled the room, close and intimate, as if he were sitting in the chair by the window. Mara, he said, and hearing her name from him made her stomach twist. If you're listening to this, you came home. That means the bait worked. Mara's fingers dug into the mattress. Her father exhaled, slow. I don't have much time. So I'll say this plainly. I lied to you. I lied to everyone. I did it because I was a coward, and because I thought the lie would keep you safe. A pause. Then, Jonah Reed is your brother. And he is not the reason you left Rainford. He is the reason you survived it. Mara's breath caught. The tape hissed. The heater clicked on, loud in the silence. Her father's voice went on, steady, almost gentle. Before you decide to run, you need to go to the house on Alder Street. You need to open the wall safe behind the pantry. You need to see what I left you. And you need to do it with Jonah. Mara felt heat rise up her neck. Rage, sharp and sudden. You don't get to tell me what I need, she said aloud to the empty room. But her voice was quiet, as if she didn't want anyone anything to hear. Alder Street looked smaller than it did in her memories. Maybe because she was taller now. Maybe because memory exaggerates what you fear. The Vale house sat behind a sagging fence, pink peeled in long strips like sunburned skin. The front porch light was gone, leaving a dark socket like a missing eye. Dead leaves collected in the corners. The mailbox leaned to one side, its number half rubbed off. Mara stood at the curb with her suitcase by her feet. Rain misted her hair. Cold seeped through the soles of her boots. She told herself she was here for closure. She told herself she was here for money. She told herself anything that didn't sound like, because he still controls you, even dead. Her phone buzzed with a message from her boss. Are you sure you can't come back early? Mara typed, family emergency. What she felt, I'm 12 again and the house is breathing. She shoved the phone into her pocket and walked up the path. The key Klein had given her turned in the lock with a reluctant grind, like it didn't want to recognize her. Inside, the air was stale and sweet with rot. Damp wood. Old fabric. something faintly animal. The hallway was darker than she expected. Light from the front window fell in thin, gray ribbons across the floorboards. Dust floated in it, slow and constant. Mara set her suitcase down and stood still, letting the house settle around her. A floorboard creaked upstairs. Mara froze. She listened. Nothing. Her pulse beat in her ears. "Hello," she called. Her voice echoed, small and wrong. She swallowed. "It's just the house," she murmured, and the words sounded like something she'd say to a child. She walked into the kitchen. The pantry door hung slightly open. And that's when she saw it. A second suitcase, cheap and scuffed, sitting by the back door. Mara's throat went tight. Someone was already here. She backed out of the kitchen slowly, her eyes scanning corners, doorways. Then she heard movement again, closer this time. Not upstairs. Behind her. A voice, low and cautious. "Don't turn around fast." Mara stopped breathing. "I'm not going to hurt you," the voice said. "But if you swing something at me, I'll probably swing back." Reflex. Mara's hands clenched. She forced her shoulders to relax, one muscle at a time. She turned slowly. A man stood in the doorway to the living room. Early 30s, maybe. Taller than her. Dark hair damp from the rain, curling at the ends. His jacket was worn at the cuffs. His face was tired in a way that wasn't just lack of sleep, like he'd been carrying something heavy for a long time. His eyes flicked over her, sharp and assessing, then softened. "Mara," he said, and her name sounded strange in his mouth. Like he'd said it before, alone, without permission. "What are you doing here?" she asked. Her voice was controlled. Polite. Inside, her ribs felt too tight, like her lungs didn't have room. He shifted his weight. His boots left wet prints on the floor. "Same as you." "You're Jonah." He didn't smile. "Yeah." Mara stared at him. She expected something: recognition, rage, confusion. Instead, she felt an old, cold emptiness. "You don't look like him," she said, meaning her father, meaning the face she'd spent years trying to forget. Jonah's mouth twitched. Not quite a smile. "I get that a lot." Silence spread between them. The house seemed to listen. Mara glanced past him at the living room. The couch was covered in a sheet. The fireplace was black with old soot. On the mantel, a photo frame lay face down. "What is this?" Mara asked, holding up the will in her hand like evidence. "This condition. Living together. 90 days. Jonah's jaw tightened. His idea of therapy. "My father wasn't interested in therapy." Jonah's eyes flicked to the ceiling, as if he could see through it to the past. He was interested in control. There was something in Jonah's tone: resentment, yes, but also exhaustion. Like he'd been fighting the same ghost for years. Mara pressed her lips together. She didn't trust her voice. Jonah nodded toward the hallway. "Klein told you about the safe?" Mara's skin prickled. "You know about it too." "I got the same cassette," Jonah said. "Different label. Same voice." Mara swallowed hard. "I need a shower." It was a stupid thing to say. A weak thing. A normal thing. But she needed distance from the tape and the house and Jonah's eyes, which looked like they'd already seen her at her worst. Jonah stepped aside. "Bathrooms down the hall. Water pressure sucks." Mara walked past him, keeping her shoulders straight. What she felt, run. What she said, as if casual, don't touch anything. Jonah's reply came after a pause. "I won't. Unless it's about to fall on me." Upstairs, the floor creaked again. Mara stopped at the bottom step. "You heard that, right?" she asked. Jonah's gaze didn't move. "Yeah. And you said you were alone." "I am," Jonah said. Then, after a beat, "Probably. This house makes noises." "Probably." Mara's stomach tightened again. She went into the bathroom and shut the door. The mirror above the sink was spotted. The light flickered when she flipped the switch. The air smelled of mold and old soap. She turned the faucet. Water sputtered, then ran brown for a moment before clearing. She washed her hands anyway. Twice. Her fingers wouldn't stop shaking. She looked at herself in the mirror and forced her face into calm. "Okay," she whispered, and it sounded like a command. She thought of the money her father had left. The repairs she could pay for, the loans she could clear, the life she could stabilize. Then she thought of 90 days under the same roof as a stranger who wasn't a stranger. And she thought of why her father would want it that way. The faucet dripped. A steady, maddening tap. Mara dried her hands and opened the bathroom door. Jonah was still in the hallway, leaning against the wall like he didn't trust the house to hold him. "We do this," Mara said, "and then we're done." Jonah's eyes narrowed slightly. "Define done." "You go back to wherever you came from. I go back to my life." We split whatever he left. And we never talk again. Jonah's expression didn't change much, but something tightened in his shoulders. "Sure," he said. "If that's what you need to tell yourself." Mara hated that he sounded like he understood her. They moved into the kitchen. Cabinets hung crooked. The pantry smelled worse up close, damp paper, old spices, mouse droppings. Jonah pulled a flashlight from his pocket and clicked it on. The beam cut through the dimness like a blade. "Behind the pantry," Jonah said. Mara stepped in, her breath shallow. The walls were covered in cheap paneling. Her fingers found the edge of a section that looked slightly newer. She pressed. It flexed. Jonah watched her hands. "Did you know?" Mara asked suddenly. "About me. About being related." Jonah's eyes stayed on the panel. "No. You're lying," Mara said, too quickly. Jonah's mouth flattened. "I'm not." Mara's chest burned. "Then why are you so calm?" Jonah's gaze met hers steady. "I'm not calm. I'm just practiced." Mara looked away first. She pried at the panel. It came loose with a soft crack. Behind it was a small metal safe, dull and scratched. A keypad. Dust in the corners. Jonah's flashlight beam shook slightly. Mara's fingers hovered over the keypad. "Do you know the code?" Jonah exhaled. "Probably his birthday." He loved simple things that looked complicated. Mara punched in the numbers. The safe beeped. Clicked. The door swung open. Inside was a manila folder, thick. A small velvet bag. And a photograph. Mara pulled the photo out first. Her breath left her in a sound that wasn't quite a gasp. It was her. Or, it was a girl who looked like her. Younger. Maybe 12. Standing on the porch, face pale, eyes wide. And behind her, half hidden in the doorway shadow, was a boy. Jonah. But younger too. His hand was on the girl's shoulder. Not gripping. Not forcing. Holding. Protecting. Mara stared until her eyes blurred. "That night," Jonah said quietly. Mara's voice came out thin. "What night?" Jonah didn't answer right away. His gaze stayed on the photograph like it burned. "You don't remember?" he asked. Mara's nails dug into the photo's edges. "I remember enough." What she remembered was a door that wouldn't open. A hallway too dark. Her father's voice, low and sharp. Her own breath stuck in her throat. What she remembered was running. What she told herself was that she ran because she was strong. Jonah's voice was careful now, like he was stepping around glass. "He wasn't just strict," Jonah said. "He wasn't just hard." Mara's jaw clenched. "I know." Jonah reached into the safe and pulled out the manila folder. He didn't open it yet. He held it as if it weighed more than paper. "It's all in here," Jonah said. He kept records. Mara laughed once, short and ugly. "Of course he did." Jonah looked at her. "Mara." She hated how he said it gently. She snatched the folder and opened it. Documents. Typed letters. Copies of bank transfers. A police report. Her eyes skimmed until one line stopped her cold. "Case closed, no charges filed, complainant withdrew statement." Her name was on it. Mara blinked hard. "I never." Then she saw the signature. It wasn't hers. It was her mother's. Her mother who had died when Mara was 19, after years of distance and silence and a final, too quiet phone call that ended with, "I can't talk about it, Mara." Mara's ears filled with a rushing sound. Jonah said her name again, but it sounded far away. "What is this?" Mara whispered. Jonah's voice was raw now. "It's why he wanted you gone." Mara stared at the page. Her fingers went numb. "I don't understand," she said, even though something in her already did. Jonah's jaw flexed. You think you left because you chose to. Mara looked up at him. Her eyes burned. Stop. Jonah didn't stop. He sent you away, Jonah said. Your mom helped him. Mara's throat tightened so hard it hurt. No. Jonah's voice cracked, just a little. He told her it was the only way to keep you alive. Mara's knees went weak. She gripped the pantry shelf. What do you mean? She said, and her voice was too calm, too steady, because if she let it shake she might break apart. Jonah swallowed. His eyes flicked to the living room doorway. Then back. There was someone else in this house, Jonah said. Not that night. Before. After. For years. Mara's stomach rolled. Who? Jonah hesitated. A pause. A breath. Your uncle, he said. Mara stared. I don't have an uncle. You did, Jonah said. Henry's brother. Kel. The name hit Mara like a slap. Kel. A shadow in old conversations. A face in a few photos that always disappeared later. The way her mother would go stiff if Mara asked. Mara shook her head, slow, as if she could shake the words off. Jonah continued, voice low. He hurt people, Jonah said. Girls. Boys. Anyone he could corner. And Henry. Jonah swallowed hard, his eyes going distant for a moment. Henry covered it. Because if Cal went down, so did the business. The town. The family name. All of it. Mara's lungs felt too small. That's not true, Mara said, and it sounded like a line she'd rehearsed. Jonah's eyes didn't flinch. It is, Jonah said. And you were next. Mara's mouth went cold. She remembered the hallway. The door. The smell of whiskey and cigarette smoke. A hand on her wrist. She'd always told herself she'd imagined it. That trauma made you invent monsters. But monsters didn't leave paper trails. Jonah's voice shook now, barely controlled. I got you out, he said. That's why you're in that photo. That's why my hand is on your shoulder. Mara stared at him. No, she whispered. I don't remember you. Jonah nodded once. I know. That's the point. Mara's vision blurred. She blinked hard, forcing tears back. Because tears were loud. And she couldn't afford loud. She flipped through the folder faster. More documents. A list of payments. A letter addressed to a judge. A typed note from Henry. And then, a second police report. Incident, fire, Vale property outbuilding, suspect, unknown. Mara's breath caught. The old barn behind the house. The one that had burned the night she left town. The one everyone whispered about. She turned the page and saw a name. Witness, Jonah Reed. Mara looked up sharply. Jonah's face went tight. Wait, Mara said. You were there. Jonah's eyes flickered away for the first time. Yeah. So you lied earlier, Mara said, voice rising. You said you didn't know. I didn't know about you being my sister, Jonah snapped, then clamped his mouth shut like he regretted raising his voice. The house seemed to inhale. Mara's hands shook again. She hated them for it. Then what are you hiding? Mara asked, softer now, because softness could cut deeper. Jonah's gaze held hers. I'm hiding, he said slowly, what it cost. That night, the first night under the same roof, Mara couldn't sleep. The house made its own sounds, pipes clicking, wind pressing against loose window frames, something scratching in the walls. Sometimes she thought she heard footsteps, but when she sat up in bed and listened, there was only the slow settling of old wood. Jonah slept in the downstairs guest room. Mara took her childhood room upstairs because she couldn't stand the idea of him in it. She lay on the mattress, fully clothed, staring at the ceiling where water stains bloomed like old bruises. Her father's condition wasn't about repairs. It wasn't about money. It was about proximity. He wanted them forced into the same space, the same air, the same silence. He wanted whatever was buried to surface. Mara got up quietly and went downstairs. The kitchen clock was dead. The dark windows reflected her movement back at her, pale ghost in glass. She walked into the living room. The sheet on the couch looked like a body in a shroud. She peeled it back and dust rose, making her cough. She found a box on the coffee table. A small cardboard box labeled in her father's handwriting. Photos, keep. Mara's hands hovered over it. Her mouth went dry. She opened it. Inside were photographs, stacked and rubber-banded. Old Polaroids, glossy prints, some bent at corners. She flipped the first one. A girl's face, half in shadow, eyes red like she'd been crying. Not Mara. The second one. A boy. Younger. Shirt half-buttoned. Fear in his expression. Mara's stomach lurched. She dropped the photo like it burned her. What the hell is that? Jonah's voice came from the doorway. He stood there barefoot, hair messy, eyes sharp with sleeplessness. Mara's hands were shaking so badly she curled them into fists, as if she could crush the tremor. These, Mara said, voice low, are evidence. Jonah stepped closer. His gaze fell on the scattered photos. His face changed. Not shock. Recognition. And something like shame. Mara's throat tightened. You knew these existed. Jonah swallowed. I knew some did. Mara stared at him. Why weren't they turned in? Jonah's jaw clenched. He looked away, then back. Because I was 14, he said, voice rough. And because Henry told me if I did, Cal would come after you anyway. Or my mom. Or anyone. Because Cal had friends. Because Rainford protects its own. Mara felt something tear open inside her chest. Anger, grief, disgust, all tangled. You helped them, she said, and her voice was flat as ice. Jonah's eyes flashed. I helped you. Mara took a step forward. Her hands moved without thinking, grabbing the box, lifting it. What did it cost? She whispered. You said that earlier. Tell me. Jonah's gaze held hers, and for the first time he looked scared. He exhaled. Then he said it. I set the barn on fire, Jonah said. The words sat in the room like smoke. Mara's breath stopped. Jonah's voice was steady now, too steady, like he'd told himself this story so many times it had edges worn smooth. I did it to destroy what was inside, Jonah said. The tapes. The photos. The records. Before Henry could handle it his way. Before Cal could take them. Before anyone could use them. Mara's hands went numb. The box nearly slipped. You burned evidence, she said. Jonah nodded once. Yeah. Mara stared at him, horror blooming. And you want me to live here with you, Mara whispered, for 90 days. Jonah's throat bobbed. I didn't ask for the condition. But you're here, Mara said. You came. Jonah's eyes were wet, but he didn't let tears fall. I came because, Jonah said, voice low, your father didn't burn everything. He kept backups. He kept insurance. He kept leverage. That safe is only part of it. Mara's skin prickled. Jonah looked toward the stairs, toward the dark hallway, toward the places that held memories like rot. He wanted you to find it, Jonah said. And he wanted you to decide what to do with it. Mara's mouth went dry. Why? Jonah's gaze returned to her, heavy. Because if you report it, Jonah said, it'll destroy what's left of the town. It'll destroy the people who helped cover it. It'll destroy your mother's name, too. Mara's chest tightened. My mother didn't. Jonah's voice cut in, gentle but firm. Mara. Her signature is on the withdrawal. Mara's eyes burned. She blinked hard. The contrast split her in two. What she felt, scream. What she said, I'm fine. Her voice was calm. Her body shook like she was freezing. Jonah watched her the way you watch someone standing too close to a ledge. Mara looked down at the photos on the carpet. In the dim light, the faces looked like they were floating. I'm not doing this, Mara whispered. Jonah's voice was a rough murmur. You already are. In the days that followed, Rainford pressed in. The town pretended to be welcoming. That was its cruelty. People nodded at Mara in the grocery store, their eyes flicking to her hands, her ring finger, her face, as if they were reading her for clues. A woman at the hardware store said, your dad would be proud you're fixing the place, and Mara's stomach turned. At the post office, a man smiled and asked, you staying long, like it was casual. Mara heard the question underneath, are you going to dig? At night, the house creaked and whispered and Jonah moved around downstairs, quiet but present. The sound of his footsteps became a metronome Mara couldn't escape. They worked during the day. Planks replaced. Mold scraped. A window taped up. The house resisted every attempt to make it livable, like it wanted to stay sick. Mara's hands blistered. Her back ached. The smell of old wood stuck to her hair. Jonah didn't talk much while they worked. When he did, it was about practical things. You need a mask for that. That beam's not safe. Don't step there. Mara answered with short words. Okay, fine. Whatever. What she wanted to say was, why did you touch my life? Why did you decide what I could remember? What she said instead was, hand me the nails. One afternoon, Mara found a hidden compartment under the staircase while pulling up warped floorboards. A hollow sound. A loose panel. Her hands froze. Jonah knelt beside her. You feel that? Mara nodded. They pried it open. Inside was another cassette. And a small notebook, leather-bound. Mara's fingers brushed the notebook and a cold shiver moved through her. Jonah's face went tight. That's his. Mara opened it slowly. It wasn't a diary. It was a ledger. Names. Dates. Places. Short notes in Henry's handwriting. Cal, warning, keep quiet. Sheriff M, compliant, payment delivered. E.R. Complaint resolved. And then, halfway down the page, a line that made Mara's blood turn to ice. Jonah, keep close, useful. Mara's mouth went dry. Jonah stared at the notebook, eyes narrowing. What does that mean? Mara asked. Jonah swallowed. I don't know. Mara looked at him. You were useful. Jonah's jaw tightened. I was a kid. Mara's voice was too calm. So was I. Silence. The house smelled of sawdust and damp earth. Somewhere outside, a dog barked once, then went quiet. Mara closed the notebook with careful control. What's on the tape? Jonah asked. Mara held it up. The label read, for both of you. Play together. Of course it did. Mara's hands shook. What if we don't? She asked. Jonah's voice was almost a whisper. Then we keep guessing. And he keeps winning. They set up the recorder on the kitchen table that night. The overhead light buzzed faintly. A moth tapped against the shade again and again, desperate. Mara sat across from Jonah. Between them, the tape recorder waited. Jonah didn't look at her hands. He looked at her face. Like he was bracing for impact. Mara pressed play. The hiss. The whir. Henry Vale's voice came through, calm as ever. If you're both listening, he said, then you did exactly what I expected. You made it this far. Good. Mara's fingers curled around the edge of the table. Henry continued. Cal is dead, he said. Don't look surprised. You don't get to survive like he did without making enemies. Mara's breath caught. Jonah's jaw tightened. And now, Henry said, voice smooth, you have a choice. You can take the inheritance and keep Rainford quiet, like your mother wanted. Like everyone wanted. Like I did for too long. A pause. A faint sound, like Henry wetting his lips. Or, he said, you can burn it all down. Make your pain public. Make your mother a collaborator. Make yourselves the kind of people Rainford will spit out. Mara felt sick. Henry's voice softened, almost tender. Mara, he said, you've spent your life trying to forget. Jonah has spent his life trying to remember for you. Jonah flinched slightly. The smallest movement. Henry's voice sharpened again. You want to know the condition's real purpose? He asked. Mara's stomach clenched. It's not 90 days, Henry said. It's not repairs. It's not even Jonah. A pause. It's this, Henry said. The house is in both your names, but the deed transfers only if you sign the affidavit in the safe. Mara's mind raced. Affidavit. Jonah's eyes were fixed on the recorder like it might bite. Henry continued, voice calm and cruel. The affidavit states, he said, that no abuse occurred on the Vale property. That all allegations were false. That Cal was innocent. Mara's vision tunneled. Jonah's breathing changed. Faster. Henry's voice sank lower. If you sign, Henry said, the inheritance is yours. Clean. Quiet. Safe. Rainford stays Rainford. Mara's hands clenched hard enough to ache. And if you don't, Henry said, the inheritance goes to the town. To the church. To the people who helped me. The people who protected the family. The people who protected Cal. Mara felt a cold wave move through her. Henry's voice ended softly. Choose, he said. And remember, your silence always belonged to someone else. The tape clicked off. The kitchen was suddenly too quiet. Mara sat very still, as if movement would shatter her. Jonah didn't speak. Mara's throat worked. Her voice came out barely above a whisper. "So that's it," she said. "He wants me to lie. On paper." Jonah stared at the table. His hands were clenched, knuckles pale. Mara felt something rise in her chest, anger, grief, a hot need to destroy something. She forced her face into calm. "What do you think?" she asked. What she felt: "If you say sign it, I'll hate you forever." Jonah's voice was rough. "I think he built a trap." Mara nodded. Slowly. "And he thinks I'll pick money." Jonah looked up at her then, eyes dark. "What are you going to pick?" Mara's lips parted. She wanted to say the right thing. The heroic thing. Instead, she heard herself say, in a voice that sounded steady, "I don't know." The honesty tasted like blood. On day 47, Mara found the affidavit. It was in the safe, sealed in a white envelope like communion. She held it with 2 fingers, as if it was contaminated. Jonah stood behind her in the pantry doorway, flashlight beam steady. Mara pulled the paper out. The language was neat, legal, unquestionable. "I, Mara Elise Vale, hereby attest." A blank line for her signature. A blank line for Jonah's. Mara read it once. Twice. Her hands started to shake so hard the paper rustled like dry leaves. She laughed, a short sound that broke. Jonah moved closer. "Mara." She turned on him fast, the paper raised between them like a weapon. "Do you know what's insane?" she said, voice tight. "It's not that he wants this. It's that part of me wants to do it. Just to end it." Jonah's face tightened. "I get it." "No," Mara snapped. "You don't. Because you don't have to carry my mother's name on your spine. You don't have to imagine her signing this. You don't have to wonder if she looked at me and saw a problem to manage." Jonah's eyes flashed. "You think I didn't carry anything?" Mara's breath was sharp. "Then tell me." Jonah's hands clenched, then released. "My mom," he said, voice low, "was paid to keep quiet. That's why she was around Henry. That's why I existed. She wasn't loved. She was managed." Mara froze. Jonah's eyes were wet now. He didn't wipe them. "Henry didn't just hide Cal," Jonah said. "He used Cal. He used the fear. He used the town's shame. He built an empire on it." Mara's chest burned. Her mouth went numb. From upstairs came a loud thump. Both of them froze. Another thump. Softer. Like a footstep. Mara's skin prickled. Jonah's voice went tight. "We're alone." Mara whispered, "Are we?" The house creaked. A whisper of movement in the walls. The smell of damp wood deepened, like the house had opened its mouth. Mara forced herself to walk to the staircase. Each step groaned under her weight. Her heart hammered. She reached the landing, flashlight shaking in her hand. The hallway was dark, but the door to her childhood room was open. She had shut it. She knew she had. Mara's mouth went dry. She stepped forward. The room smelled faintly different. Like dust disturbed. The closet door was slightly ajar. Mara's breath hitched. She moved closer, slow, every nerve alive. Then, a phone buzzed. Not hers. Jonah's. The sound was loud in the quiet, startling. From downstairs, Jonah called Mara. Mara didn't answer. She reached for the closet door. Pulled it open. A figure was inside. Not hiding fully. Not lunging. Just there. A woman. Late 50s maybe. Rainford face. Familiar in a way Mara couldn't name. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her hands clenched around a small digital recorder. Mara's breath stopped. The woman whispered, "Please don't scream." Mara couldn't. Her throat wouldn't work. The woman stepped out slowly, palms visible. "It's me," she said. "Evelyn." The name hit Mara like a memory she didn't want. Evelyn. Her mother's friend. Church committee. Bake sales. The woman who hugged Mara too tight after the barn fire. "What are you doing in my house?" Mara managed. Her voice was quiet. Her body trembled. Evelyn's lips pressed together. Tears filled her eyes, but didn't fall. "I heard you came back," Evelyn said. "I heard the repairs. I heard you were digging." Mara's stomach turned. "Who told you?" Evelyn shook her head. "Rainford tells on itself." Mara's fingers tightened around the flashlight. Get out. Evelyn flinched. I can't. Mara's voice rose sharp. Get out. Footsteps pounded up the stairs. Jonah appeared, breathing hard, eyes wide. He saw Evelyn and went still. His face went pale. You, Jonah said. Mara's head snapped toward him. You know her? Evelyn's voice was a whisper. Jonah, please. Jonah's jaw clenched. He looked at Mara, then at Evelyn. Mara, Jonah said, voice rough, this is Sheriff Morgan's sister. Mara's blood went cold. The sheriff. The name in the notebook. Evelyn swallowed hard. I'm not here to hurt you. Mara's laugh was bitter. Everyone says that. Evelyn stepped closer, trembling. I'm here because I can't listen to him win again. Mara's grip on the flashlight tightened. Him. Evelyn's eyes flicked to the recorder in her hand. Henry left something with my brother. A package. Instructions. He said if you didn't sign, my brother would release something. Jonah's eyes narrowed. Release what? Evelyn's voice broke. A video. Mara's stomach dropped. Evelyn looked at Mara, shame flooding her face. It's you, Evelyn whispered. It's from that night. Cal filmed it. Mara's world narrowed to a pinprick. Sound went distant. The house, the rain, Jonah's breathing, everything blurred. Mara's mouth opened, but no sound came. Jonah moved toward her, hand half raised, then stopped, unsure if touch would save or destroy. Evelyn's tears finally fell. Your father took it. He kept it. He used it to keep my brother in line. He used it to keep your mother quiet. Mara's chest convulsed. A strangled breath. She forced words out like dragging glass from her throat. Where is it? Mara whispered. Evelyn's voice shook. At the station. In a lockbox. My brother thinks it's his safety net. He doesn't know I made a copy. Jonah's eyes flashed. You stole it. Evelyn nodded, crying now. I did. Because I'm tired. Mara's hands went numb. The flashlight slipped, clattered to the floor. She didn't bend to pick it up. She looked at Jonah. Her voice was calm, almost gentle. What did you mean, she asked, when you said you got me out? Jonah's face crumpled for a second before he pulled it back under control. He swallowed. I found you, Jonah whispered. In the hallway. You were shaking. Cal was laughing. Henry was, trying to act like it was nothing. Like it was a misunderstanding. Mara's throat burned. Jonah's eyes held hers, full of something raw and honest. I grabbed your hand, Jonah said. And I ran. I ran with you out the back door. I took you to my mom's car. I told her to drive. Mara stared. Her chest ached. And my mother? Mara asked, voice thin. Jonah flinched. She saw you. She didn't come with us. Mara closed her eyes. What she felt, collapse. What she said, in a voice too steady, okay. Evelyn sobbed quietly, hands over her mouth. Jonah stood rigid, like if he moved he'd fall apart. Mara opened her eyes again. She looked at the affidavit in her hand. Then at Evelyn. Then at Jonah. The moral choice sat in the room like a loaded gun. Sign, take the money, bury the truth again. Let the town keep its clean face. Let the past stay sealed. Or refuse and risk the video becoming public. Risk becoming the story everyone devours. Risk losing the inheritance and still not getting justice. Mara picked up the flashlight. Her hand was steady now in a way that scared her. Take me to it, she said to Evelyn. Evelyn stared. What? Mara's voice was low. Flat. Certain. The lockbox, Mara said. Take me to the station. Jonah grabbed her arm gently. Mara. Think. Mara looked at his hand on her sleeve. The pressure was light, careful. She didn't pull away. I am thinking, she said. Then, softer, I'm thinking about who gets to own my pain. Jonah's eyes filled again. He let go. Evelyn nodded shakily. Okay. They moved through the house like ghosts. Rain hit Mara's face cold and clean. The streetlights made the wet road shine like black glass. Evelyn drove with both hands locked on the wheel. Jonah sat in the back seat, silent, knees bouncing once, then stopping. The Rainford police station was a squat brick building that smelled like disinfectant and old coffee. Evelyn led them in through a side door she somehow had a key for. Mara's heart pounded. Her mouth tasted metallic. They walked down a hallway lit by buzzing fluorescents. The light made everyone look sick. Evelyn stopped in front of a metal cabinet. Her hands shook as she inserted a key, turned it, opened the drawer. Inside was a black lockbox. Evelyn lifted it out like it weighed 100 pounds. She set it on the counter. Mara stared at it. Her breath came shallow. Jonah stepped closer behind her. Not touching. Evelyn opened the box. Inside was a flash drive. Small. Ordinary. Mara's hands hovered, then took it. Cold plastic. Smooth edges. This tiny thing held a nightmare. Evelyn whispered, "My brother will notice." Mara nodded once. Jonah's voice was rough. "What are you going to do?" Mara looked down at the flash drive. What she wanted to say, "I'll destroy it. I'll burn it. I'll never let anyone see." What she said instead was the truth she hadn't known she could speak. "I'm going to take it," Mara said. "And I'm going to decide what happens to it. Not Henry. Not your brother. Not Rainford." Jonah's breath shuddered. Evelyn wiped her face with her sleeve like a child. Mara put the flash drive in her pocket. Then she pulled the affidavit out of her coat. She held it up under the fluorescent light. The paper looked so clean. So harmless. Mara looked at the blank signature line for her name. Her hand shook once. Then steadied. She tore the affidavit in half. The sound was loud in the hallway. Evelyn flinched. Jonah closed his eyes. Mara tore it again. And again. Until it was strips. She let them fall into the trash can by the counter. Her breath came out slow. She felt empty. And alive. Back at the house, the air felt different. Not kinder. Not safer. But less controlled. They sat in the kitchen with the tape recorder between them like an old wound. Outside, rain softened into mist. A far-off train horn sounded, lonely and long. Evelyn had left. She'd whispered, "I'm sorry," again and again, and Mara had nodded because she couldn't carry Evelyn's absolution too. Now it was just Mara and Jonah. Mara stared at the table's scratched surface. Jonah spoke first. His voice was quiet. "You didn't take the money," he said. Mara's mouth tightened. "Not yet. Not ever if it's attached to that lie." Jonah nodded slowly. He'd be furious. Mara's laugh was small, exhausted. "Good." Silence. The heater clicked. Somewhere in the walls, something moved, then stopped. Jonah's hands were folded tight. "What will you do with the drive?" Mara didn't answer right away. She could picture it. Headlines. Whispers. Strangers' eyes. People consuming the worst thing that happened to her like entertainment. She could also picture Rainford staying quiet forever. Cal remaining a ghost without a name. The town continuing to smile politely. Mara's fingers touched the pocket where the drive was. "I don't know," she said honestly. Then, after a pause, "But I know this. I'm not signing anything that makes it untrue." Jonah swallowed. "If you go public, they'll come for you." Mara looked at him. His face was tired. Human. Not hero. Not villain. Just someone shaped by the same rot. "I know," she said. Jonah's voice broke slightly. "And, if you don't, they'll keep doing it to someone else." Mara stared at him. There it was. The thing Henry had forced them into. Not a choice between good and evil. A choice between two kinds of violence. Mara stood up and walked to the sink. Turned on the faucet. Let the water run, clear and cold. She washed her hands slowly, as if she could scrub the past off her skin. Behind her, Jonah didn't move. Mara shut off the water and turned around. Her voice was soft. "I used to think leaving Rainford was the strongest thing I ever did," she said. Jonah watched her, eyes steady. Mara continued, feeling the words like stones in her mouth. "But I didn't leave," she said. "I was taken out. And then I built a life on a story that wasn't mine." Jonah's throat bobbed. He nodded once. Mara looked toward the hallway, toward the stairs, toward the closet where Evelyn had stood. Toward the rooms that held silence like mold. "I'm staying the 90 days, Mara said. Jonah's eyes widened slightly. Mara's voice was calm. Her hands were steady. "I'm not staying for him," she added. "I'm staying because I want to remember what happened in my own body." In my own words. A long pause. Jonah's voice was barely audible. And me? Mara's chest tightened. The contrast rose again. What she felt. Fear of needing anyone. What she said, you're here. Jonah's mouth twitched, almost a smile, then disappeared. Mara reached into her pocket and pulled out the flash drive. She set it on the table between them. Not offering. Not surrendering. Placing. Ownership. Jonah stared at it. Mara spoke quietly. We don't decide tonight, she said. We decide when we can breathe. Jonah nodded. Okay. The word landed heavy and gentle. Later, Mara lay in her bed upstairs, the house murmuring around her. She didn't sleep much, but she didn't run. In the dark, she listened to Jonah moving downstairs, quiet steps, a chair scraping softly, the clink of a mug. The sounds were ordinary. And for the first time in years, ordinary didn't feel like a lie. Mara stared at the ceiling. She thought about inheritance. Not money. Not property. The real thing handed down. Silence. Fear. The habit of swallowing truth until it became part of your bones. Her father had tried to make her sign a new inheritance into existence. One more generation of denial. Mara pressed her palm against her chest and felt her heartbeat, stubborn and real. Outside, Rainford slept under misty streetlights. Inside, the house held its breath. And Mara, wide awake, let a question settle in her mind like a final taste. If the truth is yours, but the cost belongs to everyone around you, do you still have the right to keep it private? She didn't answer. Not yet. But for the first time, she didn't need someone else to answer for her.